Welcome back for another episode of Dope Stroke. Joining me once again, we've got Chris Trott from Trotty Golf and Chris Ryan, and we're going to talk all things golf today as per usual. One of the burgeoning questions that we've all got on the front of my mind is why Trotty was up so late last night. Now, obviously, from myself and Bubbles' perspective, we're thinking he might be able to speak less than 47% in this call because he does appear to be slightly jaded. But let's find out the truth. Trottmeister General, what happened?
It's not an episode of Thomas the Tank Engine, is it? I mean, you tell it like storytelling.
Well, mate, I've got to paint the scene specifically for you to unravel yourself to the world. Let's go.
Every single week on these podcasts, we do them, don't we? 7 a.m. is what time we do them in my time. And yeah, that's why I always don't sound great for the first 30 minutes. Well, today's going to be a little worse because, yeah, it was 2 a.m. that I got in last night. I have a friend
You've got friends.
Now technically has a golf business, but we met through another mutual friend, so two friends, and he's a good golfer. He's like a plus, you have to give handicap range now, don't you? You can't, no one's a solid +1 because the gin system horrific. So he's the +1 range to the 1 range, or maybe to the +3 when he's good. When he was a kid, he was really good. And when we met, we had a few conversations about how our paths had crossed, and he caddied at the Open at Hoylake. There was a member there. We had another mutual friend, which makes 3 friends, one who played on the tour. And it turns out this guy is to say he's a bass player would be not fair, because I saw him live last night for the first time in our 2 or 3 year relationship that we've had, because his band got back together. So he's a bass and all keyboard and all that jazz player for a band called Tame Impala, which is an Australian band that is now pretty big. They do a lot of tunes that if I put it on, you'd be like, oh, I know that. Bubsy might know it, to be fair. Do a lot of tunes that, oh, I know that. A lot of dance music, a lot of house music. And then they go off and do the stuff that's more commercialized. And he travels, obviously, with the band and tours with the band. And when he's not, he plays a lot of golf. So he's been playing a lot of golf the last few years because they haven't been touring because they're at an age where they're having kids. So obviously I met him then, and then obviously knew all along what he did. Never saw him in action, and then found myself last night at some rather decent seats watching him perform down in San Diego. It was good.
So you were
really good.
You were watching. He didn't pull you in as like a backing singer or anything. You were watching, were you?
Didn't pull me as a backing singer, but he gave us all a little, gave the group we were with a little thumbs up and a wave at the end because he knew we were all there just to say like, see you later. But man, I mean, and then he dashed straight out of there. They were going to LA tonight, so he's playing up in LA. I didn't want to go to LA too.
So are they
couldn't do back to back.
Are they big time? Is this a big gig?
They're not messing around, mate. They're not messing around. They're big time.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So they've got like all the old stuff. I'm not singing, but it's quality.
Go on, give us a rendition.
You see.
We play Guess That Tune. Best of 5.
Yeah. But the new stuff, I don't know if it's because the lead singer's got like his daughter, he's got kids or whatever, but he's got like the Barbie movie, he did the song for that, and then Dungeons and Dragons, he did the song for that. So they're very commercial. He doesn't play them, but the other stuff obviously goes in there, and it was cool, very cool. It was good. It was there was a lot of young people there. Got to be honest.
Yeah.
Was there?
Good job. You're a bit out of your depth. Is that why you're there so late? Browsing.
They're very late. Obviously, you're cruising.
Were there any tall birds there?
A few tall birds. Birds with not a lot of clothes on. Jesus, it seems like. I mean, I guess it's always that's when you know you're getting old, and you're like, wow, she's not wearing a lot. So yeah, birds with not a lot of clothes on. I was worried about my dog, so I'm now back with my dog, which is good. He sat right next to me now because he's had cone on his head, because he's had an operation, so he sat right here. But no, it was good. And then it was funny. It was funny. I'm not going to tell that story in the podcast. Good. It's funny though.
And we've got Dazzler back. You say your dog's had an operation. That's 2 of them on the podcast then, because Dazzler's back after your little holiday escape. Had a few nights away, didn't you?
Who, me? Holiday escape? I'm not so sure if I'd call it a holiday escape, but it's definitely an escape.
Did you get a few nights?
Before we get going, I've done my pal an injustice here. He's now got a business in the golf industry called The Fade that you should check out.
Okay.
He basically feels like golf, which is also a shot that you probably can't hit, but he also feels like golf's got an insider like vibe to it. This is how you can tell I'm tired because I missed the Fade plug. but he's got an insider vibe to it, and he wants to tell the story of those insiders. So he's interviewed a lot of people that he knows in his network who play golf, who'd be super famous, that you'd recognise and know. And then obviously sat down with some engineers and talked golf equipment and buddies and that. Sorry, Daryl, you said you
should get him on the podcast. We should get him on the podcast.
Really, but now he's touring, so we might have missed the window. But he'd be a good one, yeah. But we will. But anyway, for you, the dog's got a cone on his head. You haven't got a cone on your head, lad.
No, I haven't got a cone on my head. But I'm fighting fit, and that's all that really matters right now. But yeah, little cheeky operation a couple of weeks back, and back on my feet as of today. Ready for the abuse, which I'm sure will ensue on this call because Trotty's there, but thankfully he's not all guns blazing.
Well, I might trip for another cup of coffee.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, 47%. Cup of coffee in a minute. You got to get that caffeine down, and then all hell could break loose. But yeah, mate, I'm all good. I'm ready to go. We're building empires here. I got no time for illness. I got no time to be bedbound. So let's just get going.
Are you allowed to get back on the coffee now?
Yes. So I can have caffeine again after my wife told me to shrink my liver. So that means you can't have caffeine. I still haven't had an alcoholic beverage yet. So that could go one or two ways. One of them could wipe me out completely, or I might be able to hold a bit more drink. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. What? Yeah, right. He's lying. Don't listen to him. He's most easily. I tell you what,
where you boys were talking about it, so I was like, you know what, screw him, I'm going to pack him.
He's no chance. I bet you when I'm next over in Cali with him, I 100% think we will be down one of the local breweries and we'll be having a couple of pints, buying some wats. That's what's going to be happening when I'm next out in Cali. I can tell you that now.
Been 9 weeks, so get out of my face.
Well, talking about 9 weeks' time, as we now use that as a pivot point, it's roughly about 9 weeks before the next LIV golf season gets going. And last week, there's been some breaking news in the LIV world, which is going from 54 holes to 72 holes. Now, I got some pretty strong views on all this, but any insights from yourself, Bubs, as to what you've seen out online and your thoughts?
Well, I'll pull you up on two things straight away, Dazzler. You've twice there called it the wrong name. You called it the LIV. You've called it the LIV Tour, and it's now called the LXXII Tour. Because if you remember, LIV, L-I-V, was Roman numerals for 54.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
So Roman numerals for 72 is LXXII. So it's the LXXII Tour from now on.
LXXII Tour. You want to call it the LXXII Tour?
I think we call it the LXXII Tour because it's 72 holes.
It sounds more like the pubic triangle in Glasgow, no?
So on this podcast, it's LXXII Tour from now on, right? No more LIV. But yeah, I mean, I don't know much about the ins and outs and the business of LIV, but to me, it's clearly a play for world ranking points. I'm guessing they've still got to maybe make a few tweaks, have they, with the field size and the cuts? I don't know where they go with that, but is that basically what we're thinking they've done? They've made a move to kind of, because obviously world golf rankings were as they are when they started the LIV Tour. Why are you two laughing?
He's laughing because he wants to know what the pubic triangle is. That's what he's just sent a message in the group and he's going, what are you talking about? What are the pubic?
Right, we'll come on to that then. So yeah, so LIV started.
I mean, I can't be the only person involved in this. I have no idea what the hell he's talking about.
Oh, we're talking about LXXII Tour here. Can we stick on topic?
We're on the pubic triangle now. Screw the LIV Tour.
Go on then. We'll throw it back to Dazzler then, and we'll come back to LXXII Tour.
In Glasgow, there's like a sort of 3 roads lead to, I guess, like a center point, and each corner of those 3 roads is a strip club, and that's why it's called the pubic triangle in Glasgow. Obviously, I've never been there. I've only heard about it from others. But that's the truth. That's what it's called. I'm surprised that you boys didn't know about it. It's quite like a recognized
thing. Who told you that?
It might have been you, Trotty, from when we were in our 20s.
I don't know what it is. I get blamed for everything on here. It's not me.
It's a Glasgow thing, though. Every time I speak to someone about Glasgow, they go on about pubic triangle.
Yeah, he's got 3 laws.
If there's any Scottish people in this listening to this podcast right now, feel free to make a recommendation to each one of those for our other listeners that might be visiting those kinds of establishments, because it clearly won't be the 3 of us.
So if the pubic triangle put in like a 4th one and managed to build like an extra road, would they change to the LXXII triangle?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 rounds. Exactly. So yeah, maybe.
exactly. Yeah. Well, you've
Bubsy's
got
unconcerned about this LXXII tournament. The bottom line is, mate, they're just trying to beat the PGA Tour, and now there's world rank points.
Yeah, I mean, like world golf rankings were laid out when they started. They knew the deal. World golf rankings haven't moved. So I guess LIV have kind of stood their ground for a few years, and it was a bit of a standoff. And I guess if world golf rankings aren't going to do anything, it's down to LIV to kind of make their move or just continue. But it's going to be, I guess, it's going to be harder for them to attract any new players when they can see, players dropping down the rankings, not getting majors. Obviously, a couple have done well. Like Tyrrell's done well this year, hasn't he, on DP World Tour, playing a few events. But is that what you're thinking, mate? That they're just trying to move towards ticking those boxes for points?
Yeah, I think world ranking points is their ultimate objective. Now, knowing what I know about Live Golf, or Lixie Tour, as you'd like to call it, is they're trying to achieve small wins. So it's not about, they obviously came in when they first launched, big, brash, bolshy, Greg Norman at the helm as well, and really trying to make wholesale changes across the entire professional golf landscape. But the new CEO or commissioner that's come in is going, no, we need to have a long-term view on this, and we need to be able to make practical, achievable steps in order for us to integrate more strongly with the ecosystem of golf and actually be a part of that. Because the reality is, as it stands today, and we've been talking about it for a while, there's still no deal between the PGA Tour and LIV, and whether the European Tour benefit or not benefit out of that. So they can only deal with the information and the facts that they have. So they obviously believe that going to a 72-hole tournament strengthens their case for world rankings. And I know what Rory McIlroy said, saying that he's not sure if they needed that. And part of me agrees, but I think that LIV are trying to fall in line. The downside for me, and this is just my view, is it's no longer about team golf. They're crafting LIV Golf to go back or go towards and strive towards more of an individual performance sport. So I think what they're doing now is going to dilute their message. It's going to dilute their purpose. I still like the team aspect. And as you boys both know, I like LIV Golf. I like what they've been able to achieve. But going down this path, I think takes them away from the team building opportunity of LIV, and it's just another individual tour, like any other tour. Granted, this tour just doesn't have any cuts, and they're all small fields. So I can't really see a huge difference between watching a LIV event. There are differences, obviously, but what I mean is you're still searching for an individual champion all the time. And yes, you've got Order of Merit guys that'll qualify for majors now, and I'm pretty certain that'll increase over time. And those are the kind of right steps if you're looking to start an individual golf tour, which is where I think LIV Golf are heading towards. So for me right now, I am not a fan of this move because I think the consequences take it away from the team dynamic, and now the team will just become more diluted. And I think that that's a sad feature of what's happening, would be my view.
What are the rules for world ranking points? Because am I right in thinking they need bigger fields and they need a cut? Because if they continue to make moves towards ticking those boxes, and there's been no indication that they're going to, but let's say they increase the field size, they put in a cut, and they suddenly get world ranking points. Great, they can say now our tour obviously can gain points to the rankings, but it's just like any other tour then, isn't it? If you've got a 4-round tournament with a cut with a bigger field, there's nothing to differentiate, exactly as you say. They almost needed to double down on what they've done and almost, stay in their lane and just keep doing what they're doing. But they've, as you said, they're moving more and more towards traditional golf tournaments, which is not what they were trying to do in the first place, is it?
No, it's not. And you are right about the world ranking points. There are certain requirements that you have to be able to achieve in order to qualify for world ranking points. So, for example, one of them is field size, but field size is based on an average field size, not field size for that one event. And I want to say the number is something like 76 players is the average field size requirement. Now, also, in theory, there does need to be a cut requirement. However, there's been that many previous examples where that's not the case. you know, you only have to look at some of the PGA Tour events where there's no cut towards some of those other events, etc., and you still get awarded world ranking points, which is also the same for 54-hole tournaments. Because if a tournament is, I don't know, rained out on the Sunday, they might not play on the Monday, and they'll only count the first 54 holes and make that the result, and they've still been awarded world ranking points. So there's quite a lot of anomalies throughout. But in general, the next obstacle that they'll have to try and achieve as LIV Golf will be to figure out the average field size, and then it'll be really difficult for the world rankings to not be able to award them world ranking points. Now, in my mind, and this is all total speculation and just a view for me, and this is very idealistic, I would like LIV Golf to make a heavy investment or buy out the European Tour in its entirety. I would then like to see all of the national opens, so like the French Open, English Open, South African Open, some of the old tournaments, they become more elevated in events, and then you take away some of those other events, meaning that those English Opens, etc., become much bigger prize money, but they also become qualifiers for LIV events. So then what you have is that you have that core group of players, let's call it, I don't know, 60 whatever players as a core group. But then after each event, those players get to qualify for qualifying teams, which might get them to an average number of 70 odd per field. And then they're all playing for that prize money. That's what I would like to see. And I think it would integrate seamlessly into a European Tour schedule, because you just, you mingle in the LIV events amongst the European Tour events, but there's not so many European Tour events that you are diluting one product versus the other, because they won't be broadcast at the same time. So it's good for sponsors. You see what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, how can you can't increase field size and continue to run a shotgun, can you? Because with a shotgun, you're limiting yourself to how many you can get on the course at any one time.
Yeah, they've spoken about making changes on that front as well, to go back to a traditional 1T start or possibly a 2T start. So that would be and again, that leads itself back to diluting the product, which I'm not a fan of. Like the only benefit that I can really see of LIV, and I actually saw it earlier, it's on my phone right now, which I don't have access to. But in Australia, and I'm going to get these numbers a little bit wrong, so forgive me for that, but up to 2020, the registered golfer count in Australia was something like 850,000 registered golfers across Australia. Now it's something like 2.3 million registered golfers across Australia. Now, you could argue that some of that is probably because of LIV Golf going to Adelaide, because that's such a popular event on the schedule. It is something, a marquee event that a load of fans go to and experience it in the way that it's intended to be experienced. So for me, I think the big benefit for LIV Golf is the fact that they do travel internationally. I think it does draw a crowd. But actually, could the PGA Tour do the same thing and be equally as impactful based on the changes that LIV are making? I would say absolutely. Because there's no there's going to be less differentiation between the two products.
Didn't Rory say something now about wanting to travel more internationally?
Yeah, but he's also moved back to the Wentworth estate now. So he's in Europe. He's living Europe a bit more. So I imagine that there's a bit more desire to play closer to where he lives. So I can see him playing more of an international schedule. What that might mean, I don't know. Maybe he's got some different information as to what might happen between the European Tour and the PGA Tour and LIV. But we do know that there's a marquee date coming up, which is the end of next year. So at the end of 26, that's a key point to figure out whether the PGA Tour will continue to fund the European Tour prize money or not. Now, bearing in mind, they're investing over like 60 million in the prize money as it stands today. That's a substantial amount of money. Can the PGA Tour keep affording to subsidize the European Tour going into 2027? I don't know. I think that's a strategic play rather than a revenue generation play for the PGA Tour. So we'll have to wait and see how and if a deal gets struck. But my perception right now is I would doubt that the PGA Tour would continue to fund the European Tour in the way that they currently are. And that might mean a merging of tours. That might mean a more international PGA Tour schedule. I would say all of those things would be yet to be determined.
That agreement.
Rory.
Go on, mate.
I just saw Rory posted. I I know he's just been in Abu Dhabi, but he posted a picture, didn't he, with one of the sheikhs or whatnot involved with golf. And I don't know if that was telling. Obviously, he played in India recently. Don't know if that was telling. I know now he's completed the Grand Slam. That's telling. Obviously, now you're looking at someone who lives in Wentworth. That's telling. There's a lot there, that I think he could change the direction of the game. I know Bubsy's got something to say here, but
no, I
just think they fobbed you off. You know what I mean? Here we are. Here's your 3-round event. Here's your team event. It's from what I understand. You've said it's done well in Australia. I heard it's done well in South Africa as well. Don't know if I heard that through you or someone else. It's given people like Burmester a new life. I know he's been on the podcast, which is awesome. It's extended the careers of a couple of players, which is great. But at the end of the day, you've got a product here that is hitting a new audience. It is a different vibe. It's bloody slow. But you know what? They're trying. They're doing different things. It's like if you look down the European Tour social media this week, they've just put something out with it's brilliant. I don't know if you've seen it, Bubsy. You'd be interested. Lowry and Fitzpatrick talking about wedge shots, a little bit about strokes gained, a little bit about proximity to the hole on certain distances. It's everything that I talk about when it comes to fitting golf clubs, when it comes to seeing a teacher. It's phenomenal. PGA Tour doesn't do that. Can't do that as good as that. The personalities, the production team. So it continues to dilute the product, which is why I've sat here and just let you guys talk about it. It continues to be an absolute, this ain't the pubic triangle. This is shocking. This ain't a good thing for the golf world. You know what I mean?
Do you know what the
Glaswegians need to get involved.
We've touched on the DP World Tour a few times, and we've kind of not spoken about it in a great way, and we kind of say it's on the decline. And I think they had 42 events this year. I think that was I heard they had 42. And it isn't great. There are some events that I just don't tune into. But like Trotty was saying, when they get these big events, when you get the Wentworth, when you get your Abu Dhabi, when you get these huge events, the Rolex events, they do them really well. It was such a good watch last week. And the activations off the back of it, I haven't seen that, but I will watch that. They do a really, really good job. And it's a bit of a shame because there's so many things that they do really well, but they've just got, I don't know how many Rolex events there are, 4 or 5. It's just, they're just struggling to get any more, aren't they?
It's a valid
point,
point,
mate.
though.
Hang on a minute, Daryl. My coffee's kicking in here. Just calm down.
Jesus.
The thing is, you can't just write it off because but this has been going on now my whole time while working on the tour. So the truth is, when I got out on the tour, you had the Woosnams was still there. Lyle was still there. Lang had gone. Faldo had gone. And then everyone started to go. And it would be, you'd have to play 6 events on a PGA Tour. And then you could play and try and get your card. That then extended to 10. Before you know it, everyone's gone. And I know Fitzpatrick hung on for a long, long time. But before you know it, they're all gone. So then it's just a case of Lowry's coming back because he's a bit passionate about his home event. You've already touched on that in this podcast. Rory's doing the same. But it's a bit like the Persimmon and the titanium driver, metal driver originally. The freaking, whatever they say, the ball has jumped the gate or whatever. We're done. It's done. The economy in Europe, Spain, Italy, all these places, it can't. The only hope it has, and that's why I brought up the Rory McIlroy image, is that the Middle East get involved, but the Middle East want the best players. And that's been going on. They've been paying Tiger in the 2000s to come there. And that was how it was. Duval, Tom Watson after he nearly won the Open. Then you have One Asia Tour emerging, the Asian Tour. One Asia's gone now. That was trying to suck Korea in. The only one of those tours that has kept their way is Japan. You can literally have a career in Japan. It's got its own majors, and you can make fortunes. I got a good friend who did that, and he's retired now, but he stood there and he said, I had to really think long and hard as a major winner in Japan if I was going to leave that tour where I can take a bullet train everywhere to play and come back to my house if I want to live in Tokyo or a hotel, and then I go back to the States for 5 weeks at a time. That's why there's a guy, is it Brendan Jones? I think it's Brendan Jones, great player, Australian guy, now on the Champions Tour, played his whole career in Japan. Why leave Japan? Dean Wilson's my buddy, played his didn't play his whole career in Japan because eventually sat there and said, I wanted to play on the PGA Tour. So the problem you have is like these tours have never figured it out outside of Europe, outside of America. Why should they? The rankings and the qualification for the Ryder Cup changed. That buckled. Now they realise they can't have the Ryder Cup without Tyrrell and Rahm. So the rankings are going to have to change again, which is going to dilute the European Tour again. It's done and dusted.
But you said they want the best players. They get, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 events where they have got the best players. You know, the Scottish, the Rolex, the Opens on the tour, the Abu Dhabi.
Hang on.
Daryl. To get 12 events, and you've got a tour. Like, you've got a really flourishing tour. You don't need 42. You need 12 done well, right locations, right golf courses, right countries. I don't think you're not trying to get 42 events with the best players. You're trying to get 12. They can do that.
But I'm gonna quote you here. I'm gonna quote you here. You don't want to watch 40 odd, 50 odd events. You want that.
Exactly.
So that sentence you just had there is playing into what you want. And to be honest, mate, I think that's what 95% of us want. The American football season here is over in a period of weeks. They play the season, then they go to playoffs, then it's done. And the American boys all sit here and get so fired up for the next American football season. The NBA,
you have to...
whoa, just because it's put my hand down.
You're missing a point. You're missing a point, though. You're missing a key point. Keep going, then you put your hand down. You're missing a key point, but finish your point. Oh, he's mute now. We managed to shut him up. Basically, you got to ask yourself the question, why is there 42 events in a schedule? What is the reasoning behind creating that? It's not money. It's not money for the tour. It's not. The tour are measured against 2 key parameters because it's a members-only tour. So that tour is meant to provide playing opportunities for its members and increasing the prize fund for the players. That's what it's about. So more events means more money into the prize fund, but it also means there's more qualifying opportunities for people to make it on the tour. That's it. So that's why more tournaments is important to them. But to Bubs's point, and this is where I was kind of going with the LIV conversation, is if you prioritized national opens, you'd have less tournaments and it would thread its way through a LIV golf schedule and it would make a lot more sense. But the Scottish Open is a bit of a misnomer anyway, though, Bubs, because that's a co-sanctioned event with the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
So that's why you get a strong field. And actually, you've also got to look at, I'm actually going to have a look while we're online here now. But when you look at an event on the PGA Tour, you might find that there's probably 40 players on average who are inside the top 100 in the world rankings. A flagship event that's not co-sanctioned in Europe will probably generate 10 to 12. It's less than you think.
The rankings are skewed anyway, though.
I know that, but that's my point, though. So you're not. I know we can talk about the world rankings till we all go blind in the face. But the point is, I know. But what I'm trying to say is that when you see, Tommy was there, this guy was there, but that's probably only 7 people.
But
you know what I mean?
But my point is that if I'm watching golf, I would quite happily watch a golf tournament if there's 4 or 5 elite players. That's all I need to watch a golf tournament. If you've got Tyrrell, you've got Rory, you've got Tommy.
Bothered for.
Sorry?
Yeah. They all miss the cut, then you ain't watching that here.
Yeah, but they're not going to, are they? So you don't need top 40 in the world for me to watch an event. It's almost too many. I reckon if you went to the average golfer and said, like, who do you turn on the telly for in a European DP World Tour event? They're going to say Tommy, maybe Tyrrell, maybe Shane. They're going to have maybe 6 or 7 golfers. And after that, they're not bothered. Unless it's like a local Spanish person following some Spanish people. So if you look at these events that are not co-sanctioned and you're saying there's only 10 top 100 players, that's probably enough if they can get those. No, Trotty disagrees there.
No. Darryl, I just put my hand up and Darryl, that's why I gave him the bird. But I wasn't sure if he was looking at the screen.
No, I'm looking at the screen. You got your hand up, say something.
That's my point. I don't think you need 50 golfers that are top 100. You need some good ones. That's enough.
Giving the bird with the thumb out to the side for those watching on YouTube is an American thing. I've adopted it.
Is it like a gang thing, is it?
With no thumb out, just giving it that way is a European thing. I can't even remember what I was going to say, but I'll tell you what I was going to say. There's no way people tune into golf tournaments just for the players. No chance. People tune into golf tournaments for the tournament. So, for example, the next golf tournament that everyone will watch in this area, and I had this exact conversation with the boys I was playing golf with the other day, will be Torrey Pines because it's local to where I live. They're like, we'll watch Torrey Pines. Cool. What will you watch after that? Augusta. Fair dues. What will you
I think it's a hybrid of the two.
US Open. You weren't there, mate. You weren't in our four ball. So you're now saying that they answered differently to what I mean, this guy's a joke.
No, what I'm saying, put your hand down. What I'm saying, pubic triangle. What I'm saying is like, look at that hero event at Tiger's Place in the Bahamas. If that was made up of a field of challenge tour players, you probably wouldn't watch it. You wouldn't even know it was happening.
Exactly.
So that you have to say that marquee players make a difference to the interest levels of the general public. But I also understand historical events, what you recognize as big events. So we're the same, right? When it comes to Wentworth, when it comes to, whatever events it might be, Abu Dhabi, whatever, we do have those events. We go, yeah, that's a big event. Even though.
What event then, without going on the internet now, what event? Look at you getting on the internet straight away because you're panicking. What's the next event in global golf?
What's your class as global
World
golf?
Championships this week. This week's DP World Championship.
In Dubai?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At what
end of the season event. Jumeirah Golf Estates.
Okay. What, on the PGA Tour, which is a bigger tour than the European
There is one in Bermuda next week or this week. But I mean, that's going to be a pretty average to weak field, I think.
So you've done well. LIV, where are they playing next?
Then they're on the off schedule now, so they don't come back until end of January, I think it is.
LPGA?
Don't know.
Exactly. So it's like you've just about scraped. You've got 50%.
You're a bit annoyed though that we managed to scrape through. Look at you. I can tell by your face.
I'm bored of this subject. Here's final question. Yeah, I'm done with this subject. To close on this subject, right? If Daryl, you got offered tomorrow to run the DP World Tour, it's a two-part question. Would you, one, go back to calling it the European Tour because it's a stupid name, or would you take the money on the DP part? And then two, would you take that job?
One, I would definitely change the name. I would call it the European Tour, and I would make it presented by the DP World Tour, DP World. That's what I would do. And would I take that job? I would want a lot more information and intelligence from the likes of LIV and PGA Tour before I could make that decision. Because my feeling at the moment, it could be a sinking ship. And what I don't want to do is be the captain and the last man on the fucking boat. Excuse my language. There's
another good question. I think that's a huge statement that it could be a sinking ship.
Well, it could be. We don't know.
Because this has been going on since I started on tour. This whole people leaving, people playing there, this whole chaos. So you stand there and you honestly think, Bobsy, your opinion on this, say we've got 20 more years left in the golf business, give or take. Do you think the European Tour will still exist? European Tour.
I think it goes through the kind of, I guess, the middle of the golf season, which I guess is like June, July, August, September. And I don't watch, but I see the events that are on. And I think, as Daryl says, it could be a sinking ship. I look at the events. I don't see many fans there. I don't see many players that I know. I struggle to get involved. I struggle to follow them. And I worry. And then you get Wentworth. Then you get the HSBC Abu Dhabi. Then you get the final event. And I look at those, I think they're such good events. And exactly to your point, Trotty, the activations that they do around those with the players. And I look at those and I think there's still something there. There is still something there. There is a pull for some of the world-class players who want to still be associated with the European Tour. So I'm kind of caught into, it's almost like you've got, the disparity between the events is crazy. You've got almost nothing in the middle now. You've got these events where kind of no one's playing that I don't know. And then you've got these events which I think are phenomenal. So I've got hope, but it would need, maybe as Daryl says, it needs maybe some backing, whether that's from LIV or whether it's from someone else, I don't know. But it does need something.
Having worked pretty much, I've visited every tour there is in the world, and I've worked on 3 or 4 of them for a long period of time. The European Tour, yes, the European Tour is the most fun tour hands down. The locations, the food, the chaos of the travel, the people, the characters, the players, the access. It is hands down the best tour. If there's anyone listening to this who's a collegiate player and they've managed to get this far through all the BS of is this tour going on, is this tour not going to go on? And I was with a girl the other day, good player around here, just left college, turned pro, and ahhing about going to LPGAQ school, and I was like, 1,000% yes. You will learn so much about you, so much about your golf game, and you'll have so much fun. 100%. Go. It's in Morocco, LPGAQ school. But amazing opportunity. Like what Brooks Koepka did. Amazing.
Yeah, he did well. Started on the Challenge Tour, didn't he? And obviously worked his way through the ranks. I think for me, I think a lot of it is going to be subject to what happens between PJ Tour and LIV or not at all. Because the way that I look at the European Tour is the European Tour, there's no middle ground for that tour. It's either going to sink or it's going to thrive, basically. And it's going to depend on the outcome of bigger circumstances in the tour. So that's why I think it could be a sinking ship, but it could also be a sleeping giant. But my feeling is, and the information that I am aware of as it stands today, I'm not very confident on the direction of the tour at the moment. Could it change? Absolutely. And I hope it does. You know, my big thing, and I think I said this on a podcast before, where, you know, myself and the previous CEO of the European Tour, I wouldn't say that we were close. That would probably be a bit of an understatement. And we had an exchange, a conversation, and he then was telling me that all the players want to go to the PGA Tour. And I said, that's categorically not true. When I grew up in South Africa, the PGA Tour never bowled up into town. It was always the European Tour. I remember going to see, you know, Greg Norman, Nick Faldo, Gary Player, going to Houghton Golf Club for the SA Open, and we'd go down to watch the $1 Million Challenge, and, you know, all of these great names would be there. And that was fueled by the European Tour. And he, the ex-CEO, has diluted the tour to make sure that the best players on the European Tour move to the PGA Tour quicker than they ever did in the past. So the product is just being diluted quicker. Now, depending on an outcome of a deal, which may happen, that could benefit the European Tour, which is why, to answer your question, Trotty, would I want to be the CEO of the tour? I would need to know a lot more information before I could pull the trigger on deciding which way I'd want that one to go. Mm-hmm. It's a fair point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't argue with that.
No.
Sure.
Try to, though. I'm sure you will.
Where's so Houghton? That was my second tour event I ever worked at.
There you go.
Little unknown fact that.
My second event when I worked at TaylorMade was with you, Troy. In Johor. The hottest location I've ever been in my whole life, in Johor. I think I actually melted that. I mean, I definitely lost height and fat that week. And after my first week, which was all really casual, I then I say, right, Troy, what do I actually do here? And Troy said, mate, just stick with me. I'll show you what to do. And he goes straight over to a player and he says, mate, what are you playing this shit for? Get a TaylorMade in your bag. I was like, oh, right, that's right. How it's done.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Talking about players, obviously we got to shout out Aaron Rai. Fantastic. Me and my golf boys, fantastic.
Well done.
The win this week. I think everyone who's ever come across Aaron Rai absolutely loves him. If you had anything negative to say about him, then there's something wrong with you. Nicest bloke you can meet. Really nice tour player. Obviously has his quirky ways, well covered on equipment, which we don't need to dive into. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the driver he used. And with that, I had to dig deep for this, believe it or not. And it's weird how things have changed. But he's ranked third on the European Tour for this stat. And really had to dig deep on it on the PGA Tour website. He's at 73.85% and he's ranked second. Can you imagine? Well, Gubs, you guess what I'm talking about? They've had to dig for as a statistic on Aaron Rai.
Oh. Hang on, I lost you then, Shotty.
We got you. Keep going, sweetheart.
I'm back.
No, we got you. Do you have any idea what stat I'm digging on?
What was it? I heard you say 73%, 73 point something percent in what?
Well, that's what I want you to tell me what that stat is. So 70. So I've got one of them at 69.61, and he's ranked third. And then the other one, he's ranked second at 73.85%. But it's a stat I have to dig deep for.
I mean, mate, I was on the PGA Tour website looking at stats. I mean, there is a stat for everything now. It's like percentage of miss left, percentage of miss right. It's crazy. I mean, I don't know what that's going to be, but it's going to be something to be driver because he's unbelievably straight off the tee. Unbelievably
So the
straight.
point I wanted
I'm
to make
it's going to be
yeah.
number one, driving accuracy, or is it rough avoidance or something?
No, it's driving accuracy. But the point I wanted to make is that it's not one of the big 5 or big 6 stats that they put out there. You have to actually dive deep to find that stat, which I just think on both websites, which I think is interesting now and shows you how unimportant that stat is, or not unimportant, less important than it was. Back in the 90s, obviously, I could tell you like Peter O'Malley would lead that stat a lot. Colin Montgomery would lead that stat. And as it's gone on, you've ended up with players that are maybe less dominant as kids have come through and just started pounding the thing so much further and have ended up being the ones to lead. Overall driving has become a stat, or obviously driving distance is one you pay more attention to. He is in an M6 driver, which is a very old TaylorMade driver. You boys obviously aware of that. He's a stickler with equipment, doesn't like to change. The boy uses Castle tees. He's just very much like, and I know it when we eventually get, well, Piers is the busiest man. Piers is busier than Donald Trump. I don't know if you knew that. Piers Ward and Donald Trump, literally, like, you can try and have a conversation with him if you want, but get in the queue. It ain't out. I've given up.
Queue.
So if ever he hears this, and maybe we make this the real, I'm never ringing him back again. I'm done.
So do we think?
So if he wants to get in touch, this is it. Call me, because I'm not calling you back. Well done on the Aaron Rye win for Piers and Andy. I'm not calling either of you back. Andy's done anyway. He's nished me. He nished me years ago. But
they've kind of looked after him for a long, long time, and he's always been their kind of source of information. So maybe he's been trying to get out of the M6 driver for 7 years and can't get hold of Piers.
No, exactly. Probably. I mean, how him and Piers ever speak about, like, hey, and that's why he's hitting it so good, because he can't make a swing change because he can't speak to his coaches. So he just has to stick with the same issue. And then back to your point, Bobsy, he just aims down the left knowing he's going to push it 15 yards. So he's like, screw it, I haven't had a lesson since 2002. So I'll just do this. And that's why he's still in M6. You're right. Totally. But the point is he's very disciplined. And I think that, I know he's had other drivers and new drivers. And I know that we want to touch on dangerous one. We want to touch on the amount of new product in play this week in Abu Dhabi, which is credit to the boys who went over there from TaylorMade to get that done. They always go every year nice and early, and it seems like they got organised, which will be a huge sigh of relief for the company as a whole. It's a trip I've made before. It's a lot of fun. That you basically pitch up at a golf course. I think they go to Tommy's place now, but you pitch up a golf course. All the players know you're there, and they just you fill them in the time slots, and you just hammer it. It's really good fun. But looks like they've had a lot of new products in play, which is great. Looks like it leaked on the conforming list, which is how all these companies like MyGolfSpy and SMS Survey and that obviously dive in and start to leak and talk about the product. But the official lines aren't out there yet. They won't be communicated until embargo. Embargo is when everyone can officially talk about the new products. So if you've seen those drivers in play, then it's a good sign for the company moving forward into 2026. I'm not sure you'll get Aaron Rye in it, but I mean, it depends, doesn't it? If he connects with anyone who works with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's very reluctant to change, which I think is one of his superpowers. We talk about accuracy. He's always been incredibly straight. You know, ever since I've known him, he's been just unbelievably accurate with every club, really. But it's not as if he hasn't chased a bit of distance, because I think when he first got on tour, he was significantly shorter than he is. So I think the conversation they've had as a team, and I think everything they do now as a team, was around look, we do need to hit it a little bit further. So we need to put some things in place to do that. But at the same time, we don't want to lose, they call it his superpower, which is obviously this driving accuracy. I remember Piers telling me a story going back to, he might have still been...
Going back to when he last phoned you?
Yeah, it might have been sort of DP Tour. So he wasn't PGA Tour at the time, and he was just about getting into some majors, and he got into a PGA Championship. He qualified, I think, somewhere in the UK. Anyway, they all went over there, and I can't remember the course. And he played a practice round. I can't remember who he played a practice round with, but it was someone like a Xander or something, someone who's a proper player. And he was hitting it, obviously. Aaron was hitting it significantly shorter off the tee, but hitting all the fairways. Xander was longer. And he's playing this practice round, and Xander's going in with, let's say, 6-iron into these greens. And the way that the course was set up, relatively small greens, pretty firm, pretty thick rough around the greens. Some of the greens were elevated. And I think it was the first time that Aaron had sort of realised that he was going in with 4-irons, maybe some rescues. And if he was landing it short, it was landing in thick rough and just staying there. And if he landed it on the front of the green, it was just going through the back. And I remember Piers saying, look, that's the first time we've really had to have this conversation that, look, if you want to compete in these majors, you probably need to be hitting it a little bit further. So I know he has done
Aaron
work
Hills,
on,
wasn't it? It was Aaron Hills.
I can't remember. Even if you said the name, I'm not sure I'd recognise it. But it's interesting because, and they are very calculated as a team, from what I can gather talking to Piers. So they have done significant work, and he's up at like 170, 173, 174 ball speed, which I think is pretty good because he was 162, I want to say, 163 when he first came out on tour. You guys might know better. So 10 mile an hour is no mean feat. That sounds not a huge amount, but it's hard to add 10 mile an hour and still be basically the number one driving accuracy on the PGA Tour. He's number one in rough avoidance, which basically takes into account everything you hit off the tee, whether it's a fairwood or an iron or whatever it may be.
And just coming back to it, I think it was Aaron Hills, and it was a tie for 19th place in that event, a 4 over par. And they've talked about rough avoidance and how his stats dropped significantly out the rough. The other thing that drops with him that I've noticed that I'm sure they're on is, again, this is just off the generic PGA Tour website, his approach play drops significantly when he is under 100 yards. He drops massively. He moves to 160th when he's under 100 yards.
Wow.
So, I mean, obviously that, for me as a golf coach, tells you the same things, right? If he's not great out the rough and he's not great from under 100 yards, he's clearly very shallow in the way he delivers the golf club, because good wedge players are generally a little bit steeper and good rough players are generally a little bit steeper.
Mm.
So this whole shallowsman, you got to be a shallowsman, goes back to another podcast that we made. You got to be careful of that. You don't want to be too shallow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think with any level of player, you have to look, let's say you've got someone who plays a big right to left draw, right? So they're going to come in probably a little bit more shallow into the golf, where the attack angle is going to be less down. Probably means they're going to be not performing as well from the rough. And if you can look at the stat, but there might be a great drive with the golf ball. There might be, hitting it long and straight. So it's easy to look at stats and say, okay, performance in the rough is poor. Why might that be? It might be because you're 4 or 5 degrees inside out with your path, which shallows out your attack angle. So we'll work on that. And you might work on that, and the performance in the rough might improve, but it might be at the detriment of your performance from the tee. And I think that's what is so... I'm obviously going to give a lot of credit here to Piers and Andy, but they've worked with Aaron, I think, since he was like 8, maybe 7 or 8. And every decision they've made has been really calculated as a team, and it's really impressive to see what they've done with him. And it's almost been this kind of body of work of like 20 years to say, okay, we're here now. We want to be here in 20 years. And whilst they've done plenty of work on his golf swing, there's almost been no rush to get there. It's been this kind of long plan that let's play the long game. And they make subtle changes. He's just started working with a new putting coach fairly recently, John Graham, because his putting was maybe a weaker area. He's got some quirky moves in his golf swing, which they've never really tried to change. And I think, when you look at great coaches, I think one of the biggest skills that a great coach has is knowing what to leave alone. That is such a big skill, because anyone really coming out of their PJ training, a little bit of a coaching experience, you can throw up a golf swing and they can pull out or highlight the moves that are not maybe conventional. But a great coach who's experienced knows when to touch on those, when to leave them alone, what to actually go in and adjust. And that's what they've done really, really well. And so they have worked on his driving distance, but they've maintained his accuracy. They have worked on his wedge play, but maintained everything else. And it's just a really good way of working with a player. Subtle changes over a long period. And obviously he's incredible at the moment. I mean, that's 2 Rolex events. He's won on the PGA Tour. Last year, cumulative score in the majors, he was 10th overall. So he kind of held his own in the majors. He made the cut in the Masters. So really, for him, the next phase is, can he get himself up and around the top of the leaderboards in a major on the weekend? Can he get that kind of feeling, what it's like to be in contention? And look, I know he's eyeing up majors. Might not be next year, might not be the year after, but if you look at what he's done over the last 10, 15 years, you roll that over the next 3 or 4 years, he's going to keep getting better.
So looking at his golf swing then, Bubs, just from your perspective, what would you say is a key strength, like technical strength that he has in his game that really makes a big difference to that driving accuracy stat?
So, I mean, there's a lot of things he does which are really orthodox. Generally speaking, the way he moves his body through the whole motion is good. There's not a lot really there that you can pull out saying it's unique or quirky, but the way his right arm moves is very unique. You'd almost be struggling to find another player that does that. Sergio may be similar, but that's more because of the sort of pitch of the shaft on the way down. But if you look at what he does with his trail arm in the backswing, he kind of pulls the elbow behind him, kind of retracts the arm, and it doesn't really kind of rotate externally like you see with most players. So he gets his hands quite deep. He gets the shaft quite vertical. But it's all just because he doesn't really fold his trail arm particularly early in the golf swing. He leaves it quite late to do that. And then on the way down, it's almost like a reverse of that. So he gets his trail arm really kind of internally rotated, elbows quite separated, elbow quite high and behind him. And if you ever try and put yourself in that position, you can sort of feel that it's not particularly conducive to speed and energy into the club head, which would be probably one of the reasons why he's not the longest. But because of what he does with his trail arm, it really helps him get the club face closing earlier. It helps him maintain the face angle better through impact. So it is that conundrum of the move that he's got is quite unique to him. It's a move which really gives him accuracy, but it's probably not the most powerful. So it's a case of, do you change it and gain 20 yards? As a team, they've clearly decided to leave it and will kind of double down on the accuracy. And I know they've done some stuff on the swing speed just through speed training, and it seems to have been a pretty good recipe for that, really. So really, the unique thing with Aaron's swing is his right arm, his trail arm, quite different. When you look at it slow motion, there's not many present players, past players who've got that movement, really. Almost the point where, if you looked at 100 tour pros, you wouldn't see it. If you looked at 100 amateurs, you'd see it 50, 60 times. It's almost like this amateur move where the trail arm gets internally rotated quite early away from the side, but he obviously makes it work.
Wow. Well, I think we can definitely say congratulations to Aaron. Obviously, we all know him. He's a great guy. And, he is quirky, and I kind of really like that about him. And I hope he goes on to have a great week this week in Dubai at the DP World Championship, which I obviously know that event's happening today, even though Trotty tried to question the hell out of me about it. That's what's happening this week.
I think just to close on that Aaron Wright thing, I think it lends itself to, and Bubsy touched on this, so I'm repeating him, but like that trail arm situation, I know I have it. It's hard. Yeah. Not everyone can get the elbow tucked in where it needs to be. So it's interesting that he late shallows it to be shallow, because most people with that position are generally steep.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. Mm-hmm. All golf swings are unique in their own way. You can manage those things. The fact that it's been left alone is credit to the coaches.
Well, I think you look at his success, and his success has been pretty steady. You look at his career the last 10 years, it's almost been like each year has been better and better. But, from the outside looking in, without knowing exactly what they've done swing-wise, the blueprint for his success is consistency. You look at everything he does, Castlety, it's same height every time. Whereas the 2 gloves, never changed that. Driver that's 7 years old, hasn't changed that. Irons are old, never changed it. Same golf coach since he was 8, hasn't changed it. It's all about consistency. It's all about taking all these possible or potential variables and fixing them. And I think that is what he's very, very good at. And I know from speaking to him, he works absolute arse off. There is no one out there who's going to work as hard as him. Never forget, we played golf. It was actually Piers's birthday, and there was about 15 of us, and we played golf. And the idea was we were going to play golf and go out for some food. And we played golf, and we all went over to the clubhouse afterwards, had a quick beer before we shut off. Everyone got the rounds, and we're sitting there. Where's Aaron? Putting green. Straight on the putting green, because he didn't putt all that day. It's just like, that's him. Straight off the golf course. Everyone else, he sat in the clubhouse, and he's grinding on the putting green. Now, we're talking 15 years ago there.
Yeah, interesting.
Consistency and effort.
Just to pivot this, I want to kind of go with where Trotty is just for a moment. As we sort of get close to wrapping things up. Trotty, I want to know a bit more about the embargo situation and how that works when a new club gets launched. What is the typical process about that? Like, how does it actually, so a new club gets designed, how does that actually then start to go out onto the marketplace? It's not about anything that's related to new. Don't worry, Trotty. You're not going to get into any trouble.
I mean,
let's talk about a product from 10 years ago. Like, what is the actual process? Forget what's happened this week. See, now you're getting all,
if people could read
here. I'm just asking.
If people could read the chat now to see what he's just written to Dazzler, it would not be allowed on a podcast. You think Dazzler's trying to stitch him up here?
Yeah, I'm not trying to stitch you up. I just want to know, a new club gets designed by any manufacturer, right? Any manufacturer. What is the process that it takes before it's allowed to be in play in a professional tournament, and how does it actually end up on the shelves in a shop?
Right. Well, first things first.
I know there's probably a whole other podcast, but just give us a high level.
Yeah, it is. First things first, the engineers are working on the products way out in advance, right? Way out in advance. And then the engineers have guys that are usually based in Asia or travel to Asia that work with foundries that create these parts. And then the parts now have to be, if we're talking woods drivers, have to be bonded together. So there's a lot of stuff that happens over, you have to have like these 90-day test periods. So number of shots, how does the color of the club age if it's wedges? How do the grooves fill with rust if it's wedges? The price is important. How can we make this plate that we're putting in, or this weight? How does that impact the price that we sell it for? How many units do we need? Can we use certain factories we want to use? Do we take some from this factory in this country, some from this factory in another country? So there's a lot of, like, the teams at TaylorMade are working, and other companies are working 3-4 cycles in advance. How is this piece of tech performing? What do our test people think? And there's loads of test people, amateurs, from lady golfers, juniors, through to older people, through to middle-aged folks who play tons of golf. You test here, and they all live under, an embargo that they can't talk about products, and test. Then there's robot testing. Then there's tour player testing. Tour's got to be a little under the radar. You take it to like smaller events, sometimes test quietly. Then there's conversations with R&A, USGA. What can we do? What can't we do? Oh, there's a golf ball change coming up. Right, we've got to work with them to do that. And then engineers, like, how can we tackle this problem? Like the V-groove thing, that was nothing, wasn't it, in the end, by the time we got around all that. Yeah. So it all happens way in advance. Then eventually you end up with this product that has to go on the conforming list, which I've skipped a ton of steps. But that's what's happened here with this driver. It's gone on the conforming list. People have seen it. Then these companies that aren't contracted or have any relationship, or generally, if I'm going to be honest with you, much respect for the golf equipment companies, but some of the golf equipment companies do want certain channels to know about it. So they'll prompt them as well and be like, oh, guess what? This has gone on the list. The whole purpose of bringing it out in Abu Dhabi is that if you look at scores, it's a relatively easy driving golf course. So they know that players will put it in risk-free. We know that Rory put in the QI35 at that Vegas tournament. He played with Brooks Koepka and Scheffler and Bryson last year, all designed to give him a tournament golf course that's a bit risk-free. Go play. They try and get Tiger in it for his event, the Hero. That always tries to happen. Reps will travel out. They can work undercover. Again, I was chatting to a company that's interested in getting some tour access. Why aren't you in the Middle East right now? What do you mean? Well, that's where everyone is. They're all testing drivers. You've got products they want to test. Get out there. Go there. Go to India. Well, what do you mean India? We never thought about going there. We're going the wraparound season in Napa. That's a mistake. Who do you greatest respect to Napa? Who do you want testing your clubs? You want the best in the world, don't you? They're all in India right now. Which was like, wow, mind blown. Didn't think of that. Yep. So it's like there's an opportunity to test, and then these clubs break through. Some of I guess nowadays even super influencers get the products early, but certain people, I know myself, is held under an embargo until the launch date, and it's done deliberately to get a bit of hype going when this thing is launched, and then obviously it's available to sell because ultimately the businesses want to sell that stuff in. So it's until they can get the components ready to ship, basically.
Yeah. I think this is definitely a whole other podcast that we should 100% dive deeper into. I just have one question, just so I understand it a bit more. So once a product goes onto the conforming list, does that mean that it's available only for the pros to start gaming? I know obviously the manufacturers haven't sold them to the public, but could somebody as an amateur golfer play with that product because it's on a conforming list?
That's a good question. I think they can, yes. And the thing that you look at, if you look at the models, and Callaway have been big for this, drivers will come out, and let's talk QI35, and there will be QI35 LS, QI35 Core, and then there was a QI35 dot head. And that's where all these golf works and all this jazz start to rev up about the dot head. Basically, and then I saw one guy, and this is what annoys me about these equipment pages. They're like, oh, he's in the QI35 Core head. No, like Tommy Fleetwood played the Tour version of that head, and the Tour version of that head was not sold all year. So Callaway do it a lot. They'll have Tour versions. They have to be on the conforming list so that they can be played, but they are Tour versions of that club that do not make it to retail. And the reason they don't make it to retail is generally they hit a certain spin rate. It's not, or they look a little different from above or below or wherever, but it's generally just to give a slightly different performance. And I think what's happened with the TaylorMade lineup in 35 is most golfers, can't hit a golf ball well enough to tell the difference between a Core and an LS. They're not consistent enough. And there's a max, remember. So they've tried to spread out the head performance so that the average golfer can pick apart the differences between the three different heads, because you can lay a head down on the ground, and from the TV camera, people don't know it's a Core or an LS, and that is the average golfer. So they make all these one-off heads, and they've done it now with a couple of wedge bounce options and things like that. They're just never going to be available. So, and they're not available because most golfers can't benefit from it. Simple as. Or most golfers like, which I cannot understand, a chrome wedge versus a raw wedge, a chrome iron versus a raw iron. I love raw, but they look at it on the shelf and it turns rusty, and they're like, well, that thing's rubbish. It's rusted already. Rubbish. Anyway, but it's a big story. It's a good question. And yeah, conforming lists. And if you dive onto the USGA or RNA conforming list, you will see some of the new stuff coming for sure.
Great. Well, I think we've got to go deep into that when the timing is just right for us to be able to do so. But I think that's quite an insightful topic. So let's save the broader discussion on that for another day. But it's a pretty good headline just to finish this podcast off. So let's wrap up from here, boys. I just want to say a thanks once again to you guys, and obviously putting in some great feedback once again. And to the people that are listening to this podcast, you can see us and find us in all the usual places. Check us out. Dope Stroke Show. You can't miss us. We're legends. Off we go. See you next week. Ta-da.